To do this cowboy boot project, I'm going to start first by showing you how to make the base. We're going to use a horseshoe and incorporate that in with the rest of our base parts, and that'll tie in real great with the cowboy boots we're going to carve. It's about 39 degrees. If you hear crackling in the background, that's my fire going on in the old wood stove over there across the shop. It's nice and toasty in here. And here's what you're going to need to do this, the base part of it anyway. You're going to need a cup of coffee. Make sure you've got a Fort Worth regulation cowboy coffee cup. Set that aside there. You're going to need a piece of 1/2 inch basswood. I got this from Heineke. It's good stuff. A compass, a pencil. This is a piece of 1-inch poplar. Out here in redneck country, we just call it popular. I guess because it's a popular wood. Anyway, and you're going to need a horseshoe. Now this is a pony shoe actually. It's a triple-aught light pony shoe. And you see that's St. Croix's Forge. I got this down at the local farm supply store, Atwood's. I don't know if you have those up in your neck of the woods, but you should be able to find these pretty easy. Anyway, to get this thing ready, the first step, I took it over to my flap sander and polished off all the factory rough edges and everything, so it's ready to go. Later on I'll put some blackening on this to make it look a little better. Along with the horseshoe, you're going to need some horseshoe nails. You can get these down where you get the horseshoe. Unfortunately, these are kind of expensive because you got to buy a box of 100 of them. These are, oh, let's see. Looks like they're almost 2 inches long there. Get the smallest ones you can. You're going to need 6 of them. And to help me lay out my blank, I've got an old name tag here that the company I order them from misspelled Wrangler by dropping the W, so I just use this thing when I'm laying out my bases around here. My blocks for my bases around here. Comes in handy, as you'll see. So anyway, that's all you need. So to lay it out first, what we're going to do is we're going to take that horseshoe. We're going to lay it on our basswood, just like that. Get it over here to the edge so we don't have so much waste. Got your grain running up and down. Just lay that right there. Take your pencil. And just draw on the inside like that. Okay? Then take your other piece of wood. What we're going to do is just draw a straight line. Across the bottom of the horseshoe. Right there. See that? And we'll take that over to the bandsaw to cut her out. But right now I'm going to go ahead and lay out the other piece. So I'll lay it at the side. Bring this one over here. This is kind of a pithy piece of poplar. I don't want to use that bad spot. So I'm going to lay my horseshoe on here. Let's check to see how this other end is. That's pretty good. Let's lay it down here. We won't waste so much. Okay. Again, the grain's running up and down like this. Get that in the camera better. Now I've taken my compass and I've set it to about 1/2 inch here. Let me check, make sure that's what it's set at. Yep, just about 1/2 inch. Maybe squeeze it in just a bit more. And I'll use this as a guide to draw around the outside of the horseshoe to give me a border, because I'm going to route an edge on there. Okay, so just take your compass, set it in there against the edge. I'll try it on this side, you can see it better. Set it in against the edge next to the point next to the horseshoe, and just draw around it, like that. We'll mark the ends out here, because we want everything square. And then we'll take our piece of wood again, lay it straight across there, and draw a line. Let's just put this horseshoe on there once more to make sure we got it okay. The reason I made it a half an inch is because we're going to be sanding it along here, so we want to make sure we got lots of material to play with. And that looks pretty good. So now this next step is to take it over to the bandsaw and cut it out. So here we are over at the bandsaw. As before, it's going to get noisy when I turn this thing on. I'm going to cut out the inner part of the wooden base first. So here we go. Stay outside the line. Okay, we got the center part cut. Now we're going to cut out the bottom. Now we got our two parts cut out, and the horseshoe is going to sit right around those two. Okay, with our two pieces cut out, we'll just bring her over here to the workbench and just have a test fit to make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be. And look at there, that insert just snapped right in there. Now that's unusual. Normally you have to take that over and sand off a little to get her to snap down inside real easy, because that's what you want. You want it just set right inside that horseshoe. Okay? I can still see we need to sand a little bit off this back edge over on this side to square it up. So let me just put a little mark there that we got to do that. Alright, now as we did saw them on that pretty rough bandsaw blade, these edges are pretty rough, so I'm going to take this over to my little disc sander and sand those edges down to where they're nice and smooth, okay? I've sanded off all the saw marks on the edges of both pieces over at the disc sander. I didn't show you how to do that because it's kind of noisy. They're all nice and smooth, real nice. You always want to make the best presentation possible, so make sure you take these extra steps to really get the best turnout that you can. Alright, everything fits good together. I sanded off that back edge and it's all square now. So the next step, I'm going to just set that aside for the time being. I'm going to take my pencil, make sure I got my horseshoe centered exactly as I want it, which it looks pretty good right there. I'm going to mark my nail holes because I want to pre-drill those. Don't want this wood splitting when I put those horseshoe nails in there. Okay, now remember about the nameplate. Let's just make a mark out here at the top center. Right there. Okay, now setting that up on the end, I'm going to take my nameplate, my old nameplate, I'm going to center that right on there. Get it nice and centered. Looks pretty good right there. Holding that in place, I'm going to come out here, about a half an inch, and make a mark on the bottom, not the top, but the bottom of the piece. And again on the other side, do the same thing. Just like that. Like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out to my router table, and I'm going to route an edge on here up to those 2 points. The reason I did this on the bottom is the router is going to be cutting on the top edge, but we're going to be looking at it from the bottom. And I'm going to use a router bit that closely approximates the shape of this name tag at the end of it. Okay, now you don't have to do this, but like I say, you want to make the best presentation possible, and that's what I like to do with my carving, so I'm going to take that extra step. So we'll head on out to the router table, and this will be really noisy. I'm out here at my router table, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm using one of these decorative router bits. I'm not sure what they call this style here. Let's just call it the out west corner router bit. Anyway, what I want to do is I want to approximate the design here on the edge of this name tag. So to do that, I'm going to use this style of router bit, and as you can see, it pretty well matches the half of this name tag, and that's exactly what I want. Okay? So I already have one chucked into my router table here. Let me spin it around here. This is the bottom now, remember. And I want to run this router bit up high enough to where this bottom edge of this bit right here cuts into the top by about, maybe a little over 1/16 of an inch. Let's say about right there. Alright. Now remember these two marks? Well, this is the bottom now, so the decorative edge is going to be on the top. So I'm going to start my router bit right here. I don't want to route this area right in here, because that's where the name tag goes. I'm going to start my router bit right here, go around, all the way around, and stop on this one here. Alright? Like I say, it's going to get noisy while I do this. Here we go. And there we have it. See, now the name tag is going to go right there in the center. And we allowed enough slop out on the edge to where that router bit frames that name tag quite nice. So now the next step is to give everything a good sanding. So here's our base all sanded, ready to be stained, except for just a couple more minor steps. In sanding, I kind of sanded off my horseshoe nail holes, so I'm going to re-indicate those. Okay, and on this part here, I'm going to add a little decorative edge right around here, just to get away from that plain sharp edge. And to do that, I'm going to use Old Reliable.
Gloves.
I just go around the base and take off these chips. Notice how I turned it around there? That's because I didn't want it to split. You have to take that grain into consideration. See there, see this side here, how it's splitting? There, that little decorative edge just adds just a little extra to it. I didn't do it on the back edge here because I'm going to burn my name right there. And that gives me a nice square area to do that. Okay, so the last thing before staining it is to drill those holes. Okay, I've got me a fairly small bit here chucked in the drill. You don't need a big one or a real small one. You just want one that's smaller than your nail. And you just find the center of your hole there and drill it. And there you go. The last step before we varnish and stain, varnish, stain, and put everything together is I'm going to take my pencil and just draw around the outside of this like that. And that'll show me where to put a couple of screw holes, one right there and one right there, and that will hold on this top base. Alright, so I'm going to do that and varnish and, or stain and varnish. I'm going to stain this piece and varnish it. I'm just going to varnish this piece here with some polyurethane satin finish varnish, and she'll be ready to go. Okay, just to show you what I did with the screw holes, I went ahead and drilled 2 holes for the screws, and I countersunk them on the bottom here. And I'll just use a couple of short screws to screw this top down once we're all dry with the varnish. Okay? Okay, to darken the horseshoe, I went down to Walmart over in the gun section and I bought me a bottle of this Perma Blue liquid gun blue. And this will make your horseshoe look real good. So we'll just take this stuff here, dip a brush into it, and paint it on there. As you can see, it just immediately turns everything black. Just let it set a while. Now that'll oxidize, so you'll have to wipe that off. And it'll still be pretty dirty. Naturally, it's proven me a liar. You can't see it come off of my hands, but anyway, it will. Okay, before we ran out of battery there, here's my horseshoe. I went and put the blacking on it. It's dried, and I wiped it off just to get all any excess black oxidation off of it. Then I gave it a coat of Deft here, and that'll seal that oxidation and give you a nice satin finish to your horseshoe. So we'll set those aside. For the top part of the base, I used Minwax polyurethane clear satin varnish. Gave it a coat. I'll probably have to come back and give it another coat to get a nice even coat on there. For the lower part of the base, as you can see, I'm in the process of staining it. I first gave it a nice, being as this is poplar, it's sort of like pine, another softwood, and when you varnish softwood, it gets kind of blotchy looking. Excuse me. To prevent that, I gave it a coat of thin shellac. I take about, let's see, get a little shellac in a can and then add about, make it about a 5-to-1 mixture with alcohol and coat that wood with it. And what that does is that seals the top of the wood, so when the varnish goes on, it goes on nice and smooth. It doesn't have a tendency to soak in so much. And it gives you a nice, rich looking varnish. It won't be as dark as if you put it on without the shellac, but it'll be much, much prettier. I just use a rag for varnish. Hands get kind of dirty, but that's all right. Old pair of socks always comes in handy for this stuff. So anyway, you get that varnish on there, set that aside to dry just a little bit, soak in. Get you another old piece of your underwear here and wipe her off. Like I say, it's not going to be as dark as if you put it on an unvarnished or unsealed piece, but it'll look a lot better. There, see, those burn marks from the router actually look good. Now I might later on come back and give this another coat of varnish once this one dries. I forgot to mention what kind of stain I was using. It's just dark walnut. I use it just about on everything. Comes in handy. And another good tip is always buy the small cans of everything. See, I even buy polyurethane in the smallest can. Because, believe it or not, it won't necessarily happen with the stain, but it will happen with this polyurethane. You'll get halfway through this can and it'll start to thicken up. When that happens, just throw it away and go down and buy you a new can, because you want it nice and thin so it soaks in real good. And if you went and bought a quart can, you're going to use about that much of it and then toss the quart can. Well, that's throwing away a lot of money. This is throwing away a little bit of money. So always get the smallest can. All right? But that'll look pretty good. Just take a pre-look here on how it's going to look. It's going to look pretty slick, I think. Okay? So we'll let this dry, and tomorrow we can put it all together.